Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Bill. This is a update for the Darksuns campaign. I'll have the correct update in the title. I don't remember what it is number wise, but this is 2 different weekends worth of updates. We played both Sundays, last Sunday and the Sunday before. So without further ado, let's dive in and relay what all we've been getting into. So we are in Darksuns, of course. It has been about a month or a little over a month since we actually game blast before this game session. So we've pretty much forgotten most of what all we've gotten into or where we left off. And the game master knew where we left off. He started us at a bunch of rocks in front of a bunch of corpses, and we could hear bird flapping noises behind the rocks somewhere. So we then backtracked to what all we did remember, which we had just fled the town, and we had just dealt with Baba Yaga. And by dealt with, I mean she pretty much had her way with our characters, and I think it was just my 2 characters that were pulled in this time. But I digress on that end. So we're taking up from there. We travel into the mountains because we're heading towards the town that's either in the mountains or on the other side of the mountains. I don't remember the exact details of that, which wasn't that relevant to my characters. We just knew we were headed that way because there's a town that way. From there, we didn't have a whole lot of encounters during the first couple of days of travel. We supplemented some of our food in the beginning foothills of the mountains with whatever small game we could catch, which being Darksun wasn't much. And then as we got into the mountains, we were dealing with those trails and the weather and such, which wasn't terrible weather, but the sky was lit up, and everyone that had psionic, everyone that had a touch of psionics was affected by it. They were getting headaches. Those that were full psionics were getting migraines. Well, a few days of that passes, and then we end up at the scene I just described. Looked like somebody had made camp and then got destroyed by something that was flying. We raid their stuff and take what we want. We hear the flapping noise, but we don't go and investigate, which is odd for our group, but this whole Darksun campaign, our normal group's been doing odd things, so it's very interesting to see the difference. From here, we continue on about 4 hours and make camp. We have a fire for dinner, which is what we've been doing in the mountains, and then putting the fire out for night. The downside is no one has low light vision, so no one can see in starlight or just at night real well. So in the first few hours of watch, we come under attack by some flying creatures. My spellcaster Hoya, when she wakes up, she casts light on a stone and chucks it up in the air to try to figure out what's going on and where. We attempt to retaliate for a round or 2 before the cleric makes the decision to cast daylight up in the air. And with that, we can see what's going on. Those things that were very used to the amount of darkness are blinded. And Ort, who had, I think, injured 1 by now, could now actually wait in time when he needed to attack with his big weapon. He managed in the whole fight to take out about 2 or 3 of them. I believe it was 3 of them, because I know he took out 1 with a single critical hit. It attacked him. He was power attacking and with the critical hit, did double damage, so he did like 40 some points of damage to it. Well, we fight these bird creatures for, I want to say, like 5 or 6 rounds. And then after defeating them all, we find out that they're harpies, or at least Darksun harpies. And I think we took some of the claws to use for weapons later, like to turn the giant harpy claws into like daggers. So with that, we cleared the corpses out of the camp, and then we moved on in the morning and came to a fork to make a decision. We either had to go uphill or downhill, either into the valley or further up the mountains. I think we chose the valley, if I had to remember correctly. But if I don't remember correctly, put it in the comments below, fellow players, please. We travel for some time, and then we start seeing old mine caves. We passed about 3 of them, and the third one or two of my characters, at least one of my characters, and one other party member hears some noises coming out of the cave. Faintly sounds like a large cat, like a lion or a tiger. And we also hear the faint noises of metal or metal on stone. Well, since we weren't interested in going into the caves at the time, we continue on. We hear a loud boom as we're going across a section of path, and then it collapses under us. We all get saving throws to try to avoid it, and the archer failed his saving throw and falls into the hole. Well, we set up some rope and descend down in there to him. He's dusted himself off, and he's getting some healing from the cleric. At this point, that's where the first game session ended and the second game session started. So this is what happened immediately last week. From there, we had a couple options on doors to pick, so we picked one, and we go down it, and it looks like nobody's been here in ages, and the last person to be here left a clear trail in the dust to where they went. Well, we see tapestries on the wall in the room we enter, big support columns along the walls, and a giant petrified table, which we think there's somebody sitting on the other end of. And the path that we see in the dust avoids the table completely. The tapestries have eyes on them, probably eyes for like peoples or old depictions of what used to be on the tapestries, but how old they are we can't really see. But some of the eyes are shinier than the others, so that right there tells us something's going on. Ort decides that he's going to go and pull the tapestries down. He first just checks behind them, and then he decides he'll just pull them down. Being easy and fragile, that was no effort for the character that has 20 strength. So he's sitting there pulling those down, and I think the pugilist decided he was going to go. So the fisticuffs fighter, he decided he was going to go on the other side and pull down those tapestries. Well, the archer, this tells you how much bad luck he's had in this dungeon, hops up on the table, and then we hear a click, and then he gets shot by 2 different arrows. I don't know if he got hit by both of them, but he got shot by 2 different ones. One of them definitely hit him because I heard him take poison damage when I was barely paying attention to what was going on. He rolls off the table. At this point, one of the players that we haven't played with in forever shows up and has his character ready. So they go over a little bit, him and the Game Master go over a little bit what's going on. His character's not from Darksun, so they're role-playing out how he gets here. More or less, he's in a bar fight, and he gets his nose broken. I don't know if he actually won any of the fight, but I can't say that he didn't, because I just don't remember enough of that fight. But at some point, he ends up, feels like somebody pulled him, and he ends up underneath the table in the room we're in, at the same time that the archer falls off the table beside him. So there's a brief interaction there. The cleric comes over and heals them. After removing all the tapestries, we regroup, and then we go and investigate the person sitting at the end of the table. It's a skeleton wearing a bone crown. And most of his decayed clothing has landed in his chair. The cleric or the pugilist, it's the same player, but the cleric or the pugilist tries to rummage around in the cloth there. And upon touching it, the corpse pretty much turns to dust, falls apart. The crown hits the ground and a gem comes free. That character goes to pick up the gem and finds a hole in its glove that wasn't there before. And then we see something moving up his arm. So if it wasn't the cleric cast, I believe it was remove disease. And if it was the cleric, he cast it on himself. So that's the only difference there. And the thing just kind of merges into his arm, and then you see this purple trail going all the way to his fingertip. It was a corpse grub, one of the things that you definitely don't want to get on you in almost any situation. It takes them up to 3 turns to burrow to your heart, and the only way to kill them is fire or remove disease. So that must have been how the king met his end. We collect the gem. We find that there's a path behind here that the trail in the dust was going to, and it goes to a room. The room ends up being ransacked, and it looks like the bedchamber for the king. We check some of the stuff, finding what I expect us to find, which was nothing. We then remove one of the chests on the ground, like the big, one of those big storage chests, and we find a section of stone that looks a little off. It pushes down a little bit. We end up pulling it out, and there's a box in it. And in the box was like a bag of, I guess they were stone coins, but our characters not being from around here couldn't identify them as such right away. But we keep it either way. So we add that to our inventory. And then we go back and pick a new direction to head to. So we come out of the king's chamber, and then head in a new direction. The new direction, we go for a little bit and come to a 4-way intersection. Hoya, my psionicist, casts light on a pebble and throws it straight down the fork until it either gets close to or sees the wall. And we see a double intersection there. We throw it to the left. We see that the intersection curves to the right there. We throw it to the right, it curves to the left. So it's more or less like a giant boxed corridor. So we just pick one of the directions and go. I don't remember exactly which direction we picked, but it took us to the kitchen. And the kitchen, this is the first signs of anything living being here. There's some fresh vegetables and stuff out. There's a cauldron cooking, boiling away, and smells of food. We leave the kitchen area and head another direction and end up in the smithy. We find a guy working on an axe head. And while he's working on it, we end up casting, Hoya ends up casting sleep on him. And then we just check the room real good. And then we continue on, leaving him where he was. And then we find a room where there are 4 dwarves mining. The smith was also a dwarf. And they're mining something in a wall. Hoya casts a greater version of sleep on them, and 2 of them go down. And then we negotiate with the others. Since we took this approach of, and at this point we made the decision, since we took the approach of not hurting anyone, we decided that speaking was the better option, which is also not something our party normally does. So, but in Darksun, we've done it more often than the Game Master probably has expected. So we talk to them, we get escorted out. We offer to do trade relations with them, but I didn't get a confirmation from the Game Master whether that was concrete or not, which is okay. But as we exit the cave, we see the 3 chained purple like panther-like creatures with multiple legs. I mean, like 6 to 8 legs. And then we find ourselves outside the cave that had the cat noises. And that's where that adventure ended. So that's where we'll take up the next adventure. I doubt it's going to be this Sunday, considering Christmas is Monday. But if nothing else, it'll be the first thing we take up next year. So, until we all game again, guys.